Hello, and welcome back, not to the history of comics, but to a comic book haul. 2 weeks ago, I was at the Beja Comics Festival in Portugal. It's something that a few years ago I didn't have time to do because of working on weekends, but now I'm trying my best to attend every year. And I got the chance to meet a couple of my favorite French artists who were invited to come, got some autographs, and bought a few new comics, including stuff that's usually a little bit out there. I bought a Miss Marple graphic novel, and I also have a couple of biographical comics that were published in Portugal. One of them about one of the first people to do comics in Portugal in the 19th century, and the other one about the navigator Magellan. So, but first, I want to show you a couple of autographs and sketches that I got. These are not new comics; that I already had them. The first one from Enrique Sanchez Abuli from Spain. Was one of the guests, and so of course he's very well known in Portugal as the author of Torpedo. This was always in the black and white comic book magazines in the 70s and 80s, and I read a few of his stories when I was a kid. And a few years ago, IDW did the first English language edition of them. I have all 5 volumes. It's not exactly. It looks like a gangster story, but it's not exactly. There's a little bit of a parody element, especially when and some dark humor about being a gangster. It's a little bit like the Sopranos 20 years before the TV series came out. This first volume had as art by Alex Toth, who worked with Sanchez Abuli on the first 2 chapters, but then they had a falling out, and for the remaining of the series, Jordi Bernet was the artist. Taking a look here at the Alex Toth art. So, of course, very minimalist here. For Toth just used in here plays a lot with shadows for the mood of the scene, almost like it was like it's Frank Miller's Sin City. Obviously, an influence in the way that he crafted. I'm not sure if he was familiar with Torpedo to know that Alex Toth had done this. Another page from Toth. But after they're falling out, we get a new style. Jordi Bernet, more rugged, which I think actually works better because with the story elements that ended up becoming more parody elements as the series progressed. It's a contrast between what's obviously not being taken seriously by the author, even if the characters are trying their best to make sure that they act as they're supposed to in a gangster environment. Another page. So the lines are very different when it's Bernet doing the art. But this style became the best for. And of course, I got an autograph by Sanchez Abuli, who was quite surprised to find that somebody in Portugal would want the English language edition. We have our own editions. The Torpedo was republished a couple of years ago in Portugal, including a brand new story with art by Eduardo Risso that is called Torpedo 1972. These stories are set in 1936. That's actually the full name of the series, Torpedo 1936. And that story set in 1972 is not included in the English language editions. And another group of writers and artists that came here, the creative team of the current Michel Vaillant series, writer Denis Lapierre and artists Marc Bourgne and Benjamin Beneteau. they came here, so I took the first two albums for them to sign. I'd already bought them a couple of years ago, and even writer Denis Lapierre did a sketch of himself above the car, and then I got an amazing sketch by Marc Bourgny featuring the main character Michel Vaillant. Very, very good, very complete. I managed to talk to them a bit about auto racing. These were auto racing, my other passion besides comic books, and which for any auto racing fan who is also into comic books, Michel Vaillant is an obligatory read. This was from the second volume, and I got another sketch here. This one by Benjamin Beneteau. See, the way that these two work is Bourgny draws the action, and Beneteau then adds the cars, because he has to use photo reference to make sure that the auto racing cars are realistic, and that's what we got here. And while this was made, obviously, to represent the fictional car constructor and racing team, there was actually the creators of this electric record car, Venturi. They actually did a deal with the Graton Studios to put the Michel Vaillant brand in the car, so that they could make sure that the record car attempt would get some media attention outside normal automotive circles, because Michel Vaillant is, well, not quite as popular as the big brands like Asterix or Tintin or even Torgal. It has its dedicated fan base since 1957, and Portugal is probably the country where there are more where there are more members of the comics fan community that like this series, especially because there have been a bunch of episodes that were set in Portugal, so we kind of like that. And here, Benjamin did the sketch with the car, so also really good. So so those are the comics that I took there for the artists to sign. And then I took the opportunity to buy a few things. I don't know why, but the Mark Miller library that's being published here in Portugal is actually attracting some attention. I see some stuff that I usually actually like to try out. And while it's true that Mark Miller is not the smartest writer on the planet, and is not doing anything that's turning the world on fire, and he's definitely not like his former writing partner Grant Morrison. But he knows what he's good at. It's making this stuff that it's all action adventure and explosions going on and fighting going on all the time. He's good at that. He makes it makes a story that's easy to go through, and that any person would enjoy reading. So I bought Reborn. Man, too much white and too much light. Sorry, I have to come from here. Mind the Comics is in the chat. Hi, man. How you doing? You have got to come to the Beja Comics Festival, man. It's really good. Everybody gets the time to hang out. This one has art by Greg Capullo, which actually makes it even better, and it's sort of it's sort of a mixture of James Hudnall's harsh realm with a Hollywood action adventure, and a bit of Dungeons and Dragons. So here's some art. This is good. You can always trust Greg Capullo when it comes to art. Storytelling is great here. So the story has some very fantastic elements that would probably work better in a Hollywood setting. But yeah, it's enjoyable. It's not going to make you go, wow, this is the smartest thing I've ever read, but it's something that you can give to somebody who's not used to reading comics, and they'll enjoy it. So completely on the other end of the intellectual spectrum, this is a book about Rafael Bordalo Pinheiro, who was a cartoonist in the 19th century, political cartoonist. He created the Portuguese version of John Bull called Zé Povinho. And John, he was inspired by John Bull for creating Zé Povinho, but if you're in America, that character is more like our Uncle Sam. It's more representative of the Portuguese lower classes. This down here is Zé Povinho. This is supposed to represent the average Portuguese man of the 19th century, a bit rough around the edges, good-natured, but not very well educated. Rafael Bordal Pinheiro was also a ceramicist. He painted it, and he was also for a brief while a newspaper editor. This book has 6 chapters with 6 different artists, and so the styles may be quite different from chapter to chapter. But this is a very important figure in Portuguese culture, so having a comic book biography of him is good for the new generations to find out who he was and what his contributions to culture were. Is a bit apart from the 3rd chapter, now with a wholly different style. And here's another zoom from the 5th chapter, and it chronicles Bordal Pinheiro's visit to the Universal Expo in Paris in 1889. This also completely different style, more like Brian Talbot when it comes to drawing, but not in the storytelling. See this? All right. Yes. Okay. Next, staying with the theme of biographies. This is a biography of Magellan, the Portuguese navigator who worked for the Spanish crown in the first circumnavigation trip. And although we have a few stories of the sort that were made in Portugal a few decades ago, this one was done in France. So. By Christian Clot and art by Bastien Orange and Thomas Verguet. And this is the Portuguese edition and features chronicles how most of what went on from the political and right through the entire trip. So yeah. Kind of influenced by Manara a bit, but mostly here going for closer to a modernized version of the not of Linclair, but more in line with what was originally published in Pilar. The thing about when I show French comics, I end up having to show the entire page with lots of panels because they don't waste time doing pin-up shots. Another page from the interior, which was when they arrived in present day Philippines, but coming from the west to the east. More stuff. So there's an Agatha Christie library that's being published by Arcadia here in Portugal. I already bought last year the first volume of this collection, which features Poirot And this book is the first one from featuring Miss Marple that they've published. Looks quite good. It's by Dominique Ziegler and Olivier Dauger. This one has more of a. This one is more of a Glenn Clare style. It looks a bit like the old Blake and Mortimer books. So if you're familiar with Agatha Christie's novels, you know that they're usually murder mysteries with a formulaic approach. So not, oh man, too much light. Okay, better. So the story is not itself is nothing that you've never seen before. This one's actually is set in the 1960s, so you get a lot of culture clash. There's a Jaguar E-Type. It's a good idea that they've been publishing this because in the last 3 to 4 years, Poirot and Miss Marple have been on TV in Portugal a lot. Also new in Portugal, this is the new series by Enki Bilal, one of the artists that have worked for Humanoids in the past, and he's the creator of the Nicopol trilogy, and this is his new series, Bug. I haven't actually read the book, so my cell phone is ringing right now. I didn't even open the book, so this is first time just for you. Enki Bilal style is still evolving a bit. I think he's trying to do something a bit more chalky here, and less on the working less with shadow. So he's actually easier to read, I think. So this is the first book, and I think I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm glad that there's new Enki Bilal material. This was originally published in 2017. It's been a few years since he put out new comics, and I'm very glad that he's doing. And finally, Volume 4 of the French Conan series. This one by Robin Recht, and it's an adaptation of The Frost Giant's Daughter. For taking into account that this was a short story, it's quite amazing that they chose to do how many pages? Yeah, there's almost 70 pages of comic art adapting this story. If you're familiar with the Barry Windsor Smith version, this has nothing to do with it. So yeah, it's definitely more European, but it's very hardcore as well. In fact, this one has this French Conan series has upped the level of violence to something that is closer to what was described in the original Robert E. Howard books, and because it's made in Europe, they take liberties. So we have some full frontal nudity in here. So it would never pass, of course, the Comics Code Authority like the original Conan stories did. Here's Conan. And man, I really can't show the Frost Giant's Daughter on too many places. I think this describes well what's going on in the story. So this is Volume 4. Volume 5 should be coming to the store that has these comics pretty soon. I'll be sure to buy it still this year. Number 6 is being published in France right now, and until the end of the year, the 7th volume will probably be at least have a date announced. So there are going to be 12 books with adapting Robert E. Howard's Conan stories, and I hope that they do something else with Robert E. Howard after these. And I'm very glad that I'm buying these. These are, as usual, they have pinups. These first editions have pinups that are very, very good. Painted art. And here it is. The Frost Giant's daughter. Amazing. So that's it. Whoops. There's a computer. So that's it. I hope that I don't. Whoop. There it is. I hope that it doesn't take too long again for me to come back for another video. I've been out of it for about 6 months. I haven't had the time. I usually have time around midnight when I'm completely tired. Today's Sunday, and I'm watching the Le Mans 24 hours. About 1 hour to go. So Toyota's dominating, of course. But thank you for watching. Thanks to Mind the Comics for stopping by. I promise to come back with something different as soon as possible, but I don't have a date for when that'll be available. I'm still owing a review of the original Squadron Supreme graphic novel. So I can talk a little bit more about history, and then we'll see. Maybe I've been reading the Dark Horse series from the 80s called The American. Maybe I'll try to do something about the constructionist heroes from the time. I have to take martial law out of the bags and reread that. I'd like to take a look at it as well. So thank you very much for staying. And one promise that I have it done, and I just need to upload them. I have several videos from the exhibits from the Beja Comics Festival. Those are definitely going to this channel, and so stay tuned. And until the next time, keep reading old comics.